Ever wondered how some investors just seem to find amazing value? I mean, even when everyone else is running for the hills. Or maybe how you talk about really, really good results without making people think that's just the new normal. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that cuts through the noise, gets to the core insights in key documents. And today, we're digging into a fascinating bit of financial history. It's a letter from the Buffett Partnership, Ltd., dated November 1st, 1962. Our mission for you today, well, we want to unpack this letter, not just crunching the numbers, but finding the timeless wisdom inside. Stuff on investment strategy, clear communication, and yeah, managing expectations. You'll find out how young Warren Buffett navigated a really tricky market, delivered these, well, almost unbelievable returns. And then this is the kicker, warned his partners not to expect it again. We'll look at the huge difference between the general market and the partnership's performance, dig into the secrets behind a big win with an asset conversion, and really understand why he gave those warnings about the future. So diving into the 62 letter, what struck me first wasn't the performance numbers, surprisingly. It was how Buffett starts it. It's pretty dry administrative stuff. A paper flurry, he calls it. Why lead with that? What's that tell us about running an investment partnership back then? He jumps right in sending out an amended partnership agreement for 1963 and these commitment letters. Ah! And he makes it clear no substantive changes, mostly just rewording for clarity. Specifically in General Provision 5. Then there's all the logistics, December 1st deadline for returns. But, flexible on the commitment letters right up to year end if you called them withdrawals. Paid right after January 1st, additions
Right.
by January 10th. And here's a neat bit, if you paid early, like November or December, you got 6% interest until year end. He even details notarizing the agreement and the option for monthly payments. But crucially, he underlines these payments are in no sense guaranteed earnings or anything of the sort. Just convenient form of regular withdrawal, paid from earnings if they covered it, or capital if not. It's all just laid out so clearly.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how that very first section, all this meticulous detail, it just lays bare the operational nuts and bolts. But more than that, it sets crystal clear expectations right from the get-go. This isn't just paperwork. It feels like a foundational act of transparency. Think about how many investment pitches start with the boring details. Buffett starts by showing you the plumbing, the rules, the mechanics. It really makes you wonder, how much does that kind of upfront, unambiguous clarity contribute to building, real long-term trust? And just the overall health of the partnership. It's almost like Investor Ed 101.
That's a really good point about trust. But all that detail, almost bureaucratic, right, from a young partnership. Could that have felt a bit, I don't know, off-putting to some investors back then? Like, maybe too much red tape when they just wanted returns? Or was this level of care, especially offering 6% on early money, actually a kind of subtle edge, signaling a different kind of manager?
That's a great question. And I think it gets to the heart of, well, what kind of partners was Buffett actually looking for? Sure, some might have found it tedious, but for the investor who really cared about how things were done, it would signal a manager who was incredibly transparent, precise, someone who respected their capital. That 6% interest, for instance, wasn't just, a nice perk. It showed he was serious about putting their money to work fairly right away. So in a way, it probably filtered for partners who valued understanding the process, not just the outcome. People looking for integrity, not just a quick buck. That deep commitment to clarity, even on boring admin stuff, it's a powerful lesson. Applies to any relationship built on trust, really.
Okay, so with that careful groundwork laid, Buffett then switches gears to the numbers. And this is where, honestly, the letter describes you. Because the contrast with the general market in 62, especially the Dow Jones Industrials, it's kind of jaw-dropping. What was the market actually doing then, and how did the partnership stack up?
Yeah.
So for the 10 months ending October 31st, 1962, the Dow Jones Industrials, an overall loss, including dividends received, of approximately 16.8%. Just think about that. Down almost 17%. That's a serious hit. But then Buffett delivers the punchline, the partnership's overall gain before any payments to partners to October 31st of 5.5%. So market down nearly 17%, partnership up over 5.5%. Like he points out, that's a massive 22.3 percentage points advantage over the Dow. This wasn't just like edging out the market. It was playing a completely different game. Makes you really sit up straight.
Yeah, if we step back and look at the big picture, this isn't just about beating a down market. It's about generating positive returns, actual gains, with incredible resilience when, the whole tide was going out. That kind of difference, it doesn't just happen by accident. And he's clear, it wasn't about trying to time the market or guess its direction. So it really begs the question, how? How did they pull off such a huge advantage when almost everyone else was losing money? What was going on under the hood?
And just imagine the psychological side of that. Most investors are watching their money shrink, right? While Buffett's partners are actually seeing gains, it really drives home a key insight for anyone managing money. Broad market trends don't have to dictate everything. Not if you're careful, selective, and active. It shows that opportunities can pop up even when sentiment is terrible. Maybe especially when sentiment is terrible. It's a huge lesson in thinking independently, not just following the crowd.
Absolutely. Being able to make money when the market's falling like that, it highlights a completely different approach. So many investors get caught up in the market's mood, right? Focusing on what the market is doing. But Buffett was clearly focused on value, specific situations, intrinsic worth. It points to a strategy built on deep analysis, finding specific opportunities, not just riding a market wave. It's a powerful case for doing your homework, fundamental analysis, and maybe being a bit contrarian when everyone else is chasing the same thing.
So, okay, how did they do it? How did the partnership achieve this incredible feat, swimming against that strong market current? A huge piece of the puzzle, and it's a really great story, involves a specific company, Dempster Mill Manufacturing. This wasn't just picking a winning stock, was it? This was something called a workout situation. Can you unpack what that means?
Yeah, a workout situation is, well, it's fundamentally different from just buying stocks. You're basically taking an active role in unlocking value from a company or asset that's usually, underperforming, maybe poorly managed, sometimes even distressed. It's much more hands-on, almost operational. You're not just a passive shareholder hoping the price goes up. Often, you're taking control, making big decisions, selling off assets, restructuring the business, all to realize the underlying value that others don't see or can't get to. It's less about market timing, more about strategic transformation.
And Dempster Mill sounds like a classic case. Buffett talks about how they valued their controlling interest. It wasn't simple market price, no. Instead, they applied these various discounts to the balance sheet items, things that reflected, in his words, what could be realized on a very prompt sale. So, big deductions, like a 40% discount on inventories, a 15% discount on receivables, estimated option value of fixed assets. Pretty rigorous. Using that method, they valued it at $35 per share the year before. I mean, that sounds incredibly thorough, but also kind of risky for a young manager, right? Getting that involved operationally in a struggling business.
Oh, absolutely, it was risky. And that's exactly why it's such a masterclass. It shows his deep conviction in his own valuation, right?
Yep.
And a willingness to actually roll up his sleeves, get involved, and execute a plan. He wasn't just placing a bet. He was committing to making the value materialize. He calls the successful conversion of substantial portions of the assets of Dempster to cash at virtually 100 cents on the dollar, the high point of 1962. That's not passive investing. That's aggressive asset management. Like, get this. Inventory dropped from $4.2 million last year down to probably $1.9 million this year. That alone reduced the discount on inventory by about $920,000. Just freed up a ton of capital.
And the shift in cash versus debt is even more dramatic. They went from having, $166,000 of cash and $2,315,000 of liabilities at the end of 61 to expecting about $1 million in cash and investments against total liabilities of $250,000 this year.
Yeah.
That's a complete transformation of the balance sheet. Like you said, turning a rusty old ship into something lean and well-funded.
Yeah.
Exactly. That hands-on work totally changed Dempster's financial health. The estimated value by year-end, at least $50 per share, up from $35. And he even mentions good prospects for a more improvement, maybe an expanded investment portfolio in Dempster next year.
Yeah.
And just to connect it back to the partnership's overall amazing performance that year, he clarifies that about 40% was the result of increased value at Dempster. The other 60% came from the rest of the portfolio. So this one single workout situation was a massive driver of that outperformance. What this really shows is the power of active, focused management, creating value independent of what the broad market is doing. This wasn't market timing. It wasn't riding a wave. It was strategic transformation of an asset they controlled. For you listening, it kind of challenges that common idea that all investing success comes from just picking the right stocks at the right time. Sometimes the big wins come from getting deeply involved, doing the hard work, and unlocking value where other people just see problems. It's a reminder that value can be made, not just found.
Okay, but despite this incredible success, Dempster driving huge returns, the overall numbers being amazing, the letter includes this really stark warning. And for me, this is maybe one of the most important takeaways from the whole thing. He cautions everyone against expecting this kind of performance to happen again. He doesn't mince words at all. It's real intellectual honesty. He states it flat out. The results described above are distinctly abnormal and will recur infrequently, if at all. I mean, that's a powerful thing to say when you've just beaten the Dow by over 22 percentage points. He explains why, too. He says the performance was mainly the result of having a large portion of our money in controlled assets and workout situations rather than general market situations. And Crucially, he links it to the timing. This happened at a time when the Dow declined substantially. He makes it crystal clear their success certainly does not reflect any ability on my part to guess the market. I never try. Which is, classic Buffett. In fact, he kind of suggests being contrarian wasn't so much a choice as a necessity. He says, the high prices of generals, those big blue chip stocks, partially forced me into other categories of investment. And he even adds a dose of humility, admitting that if the Dow had advanced materially in 1962, we could have looked very bad on a relative basis. And if the Dow had continued to soar, we would have been low man on the totem pole. So looking ahead, he dials back expectations way down, says he fully expects future performance to reflect much smaller advantages on average over the Dow. But, his long-term belief is still there. He doesn't expect to underperform long-term. Or I would throw in the towel and buy the Dow. He wraps up this whole section, calls it a sermon, actually, by saying, again, he really doesn't want anyone to think that the pattern of the last few years is likely to be repeated.
That whole section is just, it's profound, isn't it? Not just financially, but psychologically. It's a masterclass in managing expectations and getting investors to understand what really drives returns, which often isn't simple or linear. I mean, think about it. Most managers, after a 22-point beat, they'd be shouting from the rooftops, right? Predicting even bigger things. Buffett's caution here. It's not just about CYA for the future. It feels like it's about setting a standard for the relationship, a commitment to his partners, really understanding risk and value, not just chasing hot numbers or letting success breed arrogance.
It's so refreshing, especially when you compare it to, some of the hype you hear in the investment world today. That level of honesty, basically saying, don't count on this happening again, must have been absolutely foundational, building that long-term trust that really defined his whole career, even if it might have disappointed some people in the short run.
Absolutely. And it challenges you, listening right now, to think about what success in investing really means. Is it just a number on the page at one point in time? Or is that also about the strategy behind it, the context, the reason it happened? And an honest look at whether it can happen again. How often do you actually see successful managers actively warning people not to extrapolate amazing results? It just hammers home the need for a long-term view and understanding the why behind performance, not just chasing the what. It's a huge lesson in financial realism, intellectual honesty. Scrutinize where the returns actually came from.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 62 Buffett partnership letter, we've really hit on some core timeless ideas. We saw that foundational importance of super clear communication and managing expectations, right, from the boring admin stuff. Then we saw the sheer power of these focused workout situations like Dempster Mill to generate amazing returns even when the market's tanking. And finally, we absorbed that critical wisdom, understand where your returns come from, and the absolute need to keep expectations realistic, even after, hitting a home run.
Yeah, this letter, it's more than just a report card. It's like a blueprint for integrity and smart strategic thinking in investing. So here's a final thought to chew on. If even legendary investors like a young Warren Buffett are warning people not to extrapolate extraordinary past performance, what does that suggest about how you should approach your own investment decisions, especially when you see incredible claims or amazing returns? Maybe in your own portfolio, maybe from someone else. It's a reminder, really, to always look past the shiny numbers. Dig deeper. Understand the context, the strategy, the odds before you make any big long-term calls.